which we've already done. That's been an introduction. So, Anne, is there anything you'd like to help us or start with tonight?
Not really. I haven't seen anything. I've been resting all the week. I'm not fully over things, and I'm staying away from everybody. But I can see you and come here. I might not manage the evening, but I'm looking forward to it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, you know, you're looking really good for 77, so keep it up. Andy,
No, I've got nothing to report this week, I'm afraid.
I have got something that I wasn't going to do tonight, but I might actually. It's a Cumbria based thing which you're going to know about, but we'll see if I can crack that on my doodah here if I can find it. Anything from you, David?
No, I kept losing the sound last week. I had to upgrade from 10 to 11. So I don't know whether it's working. It might go off again tonight, in which case you'll have to buy a new computer.
So the upgrading is the best way to go. So you've done the upgrading, so that's worked. Good. Will.
I will make some element. First of all, I received my Romans in South Wales. It arrived finally,
Yeah.
even after a Canadian postal strike. I will say one thing.
Who is the author on that book?
I don't know the guy. But I will task one thing. The comment on the Silures. I think you're a bit hard on the old Romans. I came across the read in 1844, George Craik, in a book about the history of British commerce, made a comment that the Doras Siculas described the Celts of Spain who were landed on the island of Silura, which he named one of the outer islands of the Scilly Isles. Now, you can use the term Essilur, the Essilur, and I'm not sure if I'm going to play no words on that, because if you take the S, the Y, the L, the W, and the R, and you add an I on it, which was common for the Romans, then you've got Siluri. But the word Essilur, and I did some research because I look at words all the time, observers. Now, the Demetai were harvesters. They're down in the south east corner, and you talk about the Vale of Glamorgan, but to me, the Demetai, if you translate that through Welsh and through Latin, that refers to harvesters of not farmers, they are husbandmen, but harvesters, which means they look after the crops. Recognizing that area was very rich and available for crops. On the other hand, the Silures, the observers, being higher up the hills, were the tribe between the English and the Welsh, and recognizing that they in turn were in fact at a higher level, and at some point you could certainly see from the Welsh Hills out to the Bristol Channel, for instance. I've experienced that myself. Up on the Brecon Beacons, you can actually, on a good day, you can see out to the Bristol Channel. So they were the observers. So I think if do you know the story where Canada got its name from?
Well, can I just make this point, right? Right, okay. The problem is that the big danger of basing history on one or two historians and what they're saying is dangerous, right? To come up with names and titles of people based on the hearsay of one or two historians is in many ways not sound science. Most people would disagree with me, but the big point that I'm trying to make in my own book is something that you've experienced and something that I've experienced in the valleys in South Wales, right? Say for example, you've got the Ferndale Valley, right? And going up to Mardy, and then you've got the Tonopandi, and you've got Penrhys in the middle, right? The people in both the valleys can't stand each other. They never liked each other, right? And then you move over to look at other valleys, like Blind Rhondda, not Blind, yeah, Blind Rhondda, and you've got the Neath Valley, and you look at going into Swansea, and you look at the Rumney Valley, and you've got all these different valleys. I've named 21 of them in the book, and you're just thinking, well, these people didn't get on with each other, and they didn't see each other. So why would they call themselves the Silures? That is the
Well,
point.
that's true. And recognize in Scotland they refer to clans. In Ireland, you tend to families, and families are located throughout Ireland and areas of Ireland and Southern Ireland area in particular are highlighted for the families and the families in particular areas.
Yeah.
My original family, my mother's side, Lynch, came from Cork, and they were dominant in that area for 500 years or 1,000 years, where it happens to be, whatever it goes back. But if you take
Canada.
Wales, consider Wales, mostly families, the Lewis, the Joneses, the Evanses. We weren't necessarily tribal people initially. We were family gatherings and family groups, which you might agree with as an
Actually,
archaeologist.
I got to stop you there. This is
Yeah.
when this is a really good point. This is this is a nice little bit of sound discussion, right? I'm actually I actually live near the university in Lampeter, right? And many years ago, this was quite strange. I used to be invited up to the university to talk about prehistory and that type of thing, right? And I basically said that if you look at the way communities develop, they base on a family footing, right? And then I basically said then things that then evolved as the Neolithic started to come into it, and we're looking at different date ranges for the Neolithic, which we've already done, which we're not going to do tonight because they do vary from area to area. And then I said that you've got like a family community thing, that the communities come together where you've got little families as part of a community. And then you've got the idea of community burials, like the likes of the West Kennet Long Barrow, and you've got the Long Barrow. So that's where you've got these sort of communities coming into things, right? And then you're right in what you say. Sometime along the line, people start to get the compass of being clan-like or tribal-like or kingdom-like, right? And then you've got rulers, but that sort of comes in not too far away from when the Romans are invading Britain, and so you've got to sort of structure the mindset and where these people are. And one of the things that you do see is that different parts of the world have different ways of doing things. I'm sure we'd like to know why Canada gets its name, so go for it.
Okay. Jacques Cartier was the principal French explorer who came into Quebec in the late 1700s. And
Nice.
he met some Native Americans, indigenous peoples, and he said, what is this place? And they said to him, Kanata, which actually means village. So he took that away and he wrote it into his notes. He said, this place I've discovered is called Canada. All right. And that's a direct relation to Canada, which is a village, which is the epitome for Canada
Yeah.
as a country. And Jacques Cartier was the person as the explorer who took, again, a simple word relation. And this is why I say to you, when you met somebody on the Welsh coast and the Romans got off the ship and somebody there and they said, who are you? Well, I'm the Essalur. And if I don't know where you got the stem of that word, but Essalur translates to harvester, which means I'm a farmer. I'm the guy who cuts the crops and doing whatever it is.
Which
And if you
everyone
write
is.
Essalur down, it translates to Siluri.
Yeah.
Because of the acronyms of the vowels, So there we go. Anyway, that's what Canada got its name.
There's this guy in one of them little valleys in South Wales, and they go, I just cut down trees. That name ain't for me. He didn't even ask me, but that's the point. That this is what we do in history. The one thing about people going into areas, as you've just given a good example, is that they need to brand things and they need to sort of put things into boxes. Well, human beings like to put things into boxes. They like to classify things. In other words, you're looking at these sort of botanists going away and sort of try and classify everything. And this is exactly what the Romans are doing. They're going into different areas and they're grabbing little bits of information. And you've given a brilliant example with Canada. So they named the whole of Canada after a village. I didn't know that, but that's classic.
Yeah,
that's really nice. That's really nice.
All right. Anyway,
So
it over to you.
okay then. Thank you very much for that. So
Thank you.
My pleasure. So over to my notes. God, I gotta find my notes again. Hang on. Oh, there's my notes. Yeah, sorry. The reason why I'm sat in the car still is that I've only just got back to West Wales, so that's fine. So I'm, in the break, I will move over to the buyer there. So I've got to get into my notes. So I actually thought that probably the best way to do this tonight would be to give some dates on China, which is not really what I intended on doing, but I just thought ancient China, 200 years BC to AD 400, and this thing, this China Rome thing. What is it? So it's a cultural power in the sense of China, and then it links with the Silk Road, the Silk Route, sort of from China. Think about Mongolia all the way up there. Sort of think about sort of Pakistan and all the rest of it. And somewhere along the line, you come into the world of the post-Achaemenid Empire, right, which we did last week. And then what you've got is you've got the link with Roman Britain. And this is a really interesting one. And it's not finding silks and sort of things that have come all the way from China. It's a little bit more fundamental than that. It's actual DNA evidence. See, when I was researching this, I thought I needed to think about I needed to think about this China London thing, right? And I thought, right, okay, we've got to look at that. So just you can tell the way this is structured today. So today we're going to the Far East and to ancient China, and exploring the archaeology in a little microcosm. And we're just going to jump into some Google images when we get onto the share. So exploring the archaeology of a vast civilization that flourished during a time when Rome was also at its height. So one of the points for this is that we sort of think, well, Rome is everything. Rome is the center of the world. But then again, Chinese thought that, and so did people in Central America. So did little civilizations in Africa. I'm sure the Aboriginals felt the same. The one thing about all these sort of little things is that in many ways none of them are linked, but they're all linked at the same time with the sense of human experience. So we dive a little bit into what's referred to as the Han Dynasty, and we think about the Han Dynasty, HAN, the Han Dynasty, and the treasures left behind in tombs and cities. And then we think about how the Chinese people sort of developed from the Han Dynasty. And then did these Chinese people, some of them, end up in Roman Britain? And yes, they really did. I was listening to something really odd on the radio today, and it was about Lewisham in London, and it was saying that Lewisham in London and that sort of landscape was sort of very much into the sense of slavery. And we start thinking about just before that, we start thinking about way before that, into the 1500s. We start thinking about the first Tudors, the first sort of African black Tudors, right? And not many, one or two. And you think, well, that's impossible. and that's just not there. But then the same thing might be going through your minds about Chinese people in Londinium in AD 200, but it's a fact. I'm not gonna. I want to say something else a minute. It's there's a lot being said now about this sort of television series. It's on the Anglo-Saxons, and they're showing people from Africa as Anglo-Saxons, which is for me probably totally nonsense. But however, what there is a reality on the fact that when people are bringing, this is a really interesting thing, when people are buying slaves and bringing them over to Britain in the 1600s, there's cases of some of those slaves collecting some of the monies together that they've managed to put together because they've been given money and so on, and then they buy themselves out of slavery, and then you get the first communities of of free people from Africa in London in the latter part of the 1500s. And you think that's really odd, isn't it? But it's not odd. It's not odd because this is something that I've studied for a long, long time. Because on my first book, one of my early books, which was Romans in a Vale of Glamorgan, I actually show a black-skinned African Roman legionary on the front of my book, and they did exist. Remember, Emperor Septimus Severus was black. So thinking about having Chinese people in London in AD 200 is as plausible as everything else that I've just mentioned, because we've got archaeological evidence for that. So one of the things with all of this, and we think about the detail of this, and we'll start looking at some sort of information now and a bit more about the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty, when you think about China, there's lots of dynasties. Usually when you think about actual vases and Chinese pottery, that Ming vase, and all that type of stuff, all those adages. But there's the Han Dynasty, this sort of the golden age of ancient China. So let's start with the Han Dynasty, one of the most powerful and influential periods in all of Chinese history. So what we're going to do, we need to sort of get onto the share, and we've done classes like this before, right? Where I've just sort of thought, right, I've got the text, but instead of having a set load of images, we've gone off and we've just gone and Googled stuff. So I think that's where we're going to go tonight. So it would be useful to get a map of the land of the Han Dynasty. I just want to do this a little bit more relaxed tonight because there's less of you guys. So there we go. And I think it's going to come up straight away. So this is really interesting. We've got a few little maps coming up there now. So we've got sort of images and stuff. So this will help us look at what we're doing. Hang on a minute. Oh, hang on. It's messing around with me. Oh, there we go. So when we look at the Achaemenid Empire, as we did last week, yeah, we can think the Achaemenid Empire. If we compared the Achaemenid Empire with this, the Achaemenid Empire was naturally bigger. However, what we do have is a big empire. This is a large area. And then obviously, eventually, Chinese would occupy that boundary of where modern China occupies today. So China has gone through lots of these sort of dynasties. So if we type in Chinese dynasty table, which we're going to do now, we need to Chinese dynasty. There we go. Nice one there. we can get this up on the screen. So for some of you guys, this is the first time that you're going to be seeing any of this, right? Which is okay. Yeah, so there's our Han Dynasty there. You've got the Zhou Dynasty there, the Han Dynasty, the Yin Dynasty, the Tang Dynasty, Song Dynasty, the Ming Dynasty, and the Qing Dynasty. Yeah, so you've got all of these sort of coming in, and these are dynastic empires. You know, one thing you've got to remember is when you're looking at something like this, you've got to remember that it's not like these are empires, these are kingdoms, these are sort of bounded and bordered lands. You know, these are people. These are people under an interesting set of rules. So these are the people that you think about when you look at that sort of the Han Dynasty there, 206 BC to 220 AD. And there's something interesting to be said by this now, right? Which is something that I spot straight away. When you think about the Roman Empire or how Rome is, yeah, how Rome develops, we've got to try and make a parallel, right? And what I mean by that is quite simple. When you think about the Roman world and you think about 756 BC, which is apparently when Rome founded itself, you know, the likes of Romulus and Remus. We think about sort of somewhere along the line they started setting up little kingdoms. Yeah, those were the first stages, right? Then somewhere along the line you've got republics being set up. So you've got the idea of where you've got two consuls, and you've got a governing group of people, and then you've got the idea of dictatorships. You come into Julius Caesar, and then eventually Julius Caesar is assassinated on the floor of the Senate in 44 BC. And then you've got an empire. So if we want to make some parallel with this, right? And this isn't really a parallel. You could sort of think, well, you've got the Zhou dynasty there, and you could think, well, okay, you could think of that developing sort of, you know, the parallel is Rome developing itself with kingdoms, right? And then what you've got then is you could sort of equate the sort of development with sort of you know, the period of the Republic where it says on their warring factions, and then you've got the Han Dynasty, the Empire, right? But I've made that analogy and it's not exactly correct. It's wrong, right? So I've got myself in a pickle there. I've got myself in a deliberate pickle, right? What I'm trying to do is make a comparison, and the comparison is absolutely wrong, right? So why have I done that? I just wanted to make a point, and the point I want to make is that as you can see, there's more dynasties there. The point I want to make is that for this time, the Chinese have created these dynasties, these dynastic kingdoms, empires in this area of China, all the way back to thousands of years ago. There we go. We go off the table there, and you know, 2,000 years ago, right? So in fact, you could compare another empire with China, and the empire that you can compare with China is, for example, the Egyptian Empire, right? The Egyptian kingdoms, where you go back to the Scorpion King, going back well beyond 4,600 years ago. And then you start to think about, you know, they've got the pharaohs, and then you've got the Great Pyramids being built, you know, 4,600 years ago, and you've got you've got this great thing, and then all that ends in 30 years BC with the overthrow of the Egyptian world by the Romans. And throughout this thing, they've got these kingdoms, haven't they? The old kingdom, the middle kingdom, the new kingdom, you know, and all these different things, right? So the comparison is definitely with China, right? Ancient Egypt compares better with China than the Roman world, because the Roman world is very, very different in the way we need to think about the Roman world. Because the Roman world, they basically have this chronology. So there's Rome starting, Urbe Condita 756, and it goes all the way through to 476. That's one chunk of history. That's the way the Romans want us to see it. It's one Roman thing, right? It's called Rome. We are Roman. That's it. They did things differently in China. They had these kingdoms, these dynasties in China, and they did similarly in Egypt with those kingdoms. So I think it's very important that we made that analogy, because there is a difference between the Roman world and the Chinese world, but they are empires nevertheless. And the point I should make is, when the Han dynasty collapses in 200 AD 220, there's another dynasty. There's a bit of warring, then there's another dynasty, a bit of warring, there's another dynasty, and it goes on like that. But when again, the comparison again, think about the Han dynasty. If we get back to a little bit of map again, and we just put Han in there, H-A-H-A-N. Keep this gentle tonight. And you know, we've got sort of, they like to move around a little bit. You know, there's different times of the Han dynasty. At one time, there it is. At one time they expand, right? But they're still not the full area of China. Yeah. This is an empire that lasts, well, this is a dynasty, but this is an empire that lasts 400 years. Amazing enough. And so again, the same time that Rome was becoming an empire and at its height. So when you've got the date 220 years AD, the end of the Han dynasty, which is probably, I would say, the best Rome's ever going to be, right? The best Rome's ever going to be is on the death of Septimus Severus in York in AD 211. And you could say that probably from that point onwards, Rome starts to sort of decline, really. We did a whole lecture on this, the sort of slow decline of Rome. The difference is with China is that in comes another dynasty. And in fact, this lasts, these dynasties, the table of these dynasties lasts until the end of the First World War, when you got communism taken over, which is a completely different thing altogether. So the Han were incredible builders, administrators, and artists. And if we want to put in one of the great triumphs before anyone jumps in here, is the Han Dynasty Great Wall, which we can just chuck in there. And we think, and actually, people usually think about, hang on a minute, people usually think about the other illustrations which are on the right. So that, you could say, is one of the great achievements. Is they completed sections of the Great Wall to keep out nomadic tribes. Didn't like nomadic tribes, so they built this huge thing. We don't want you little people. We want you out. So if we want to, I know some of you said last week, you know, none of us we have never heard of the Achaemenid Empire, and I'm so pleased we've done it, you know. And again, when we're thinking about this and we're sort of getting a sense of the key points with all these things, is that the Han established a strong, centralized, and bureaucratic, strong civil service. So the Hans themselves are very much like the Achaemenids. When we were talking about the Achaemenids, one of the points with the Achaemenids is that we were saying that the Achaemenids themselves had a civil service. They had bureaucracy. They had all these things going on, right? But also at the same time, well, not at the same time, a little bit after that, what you've then got is the Han Dynasty in China. So they've got a sense of bureaucracy. They're creating this world, and they are finding their path in the world. They're becoming one of the great peoples of the world, and they would become a great people for 400 years. And again, this creating and making the Great Wall of China, and this is sort of more that we're used to. That's as it. One of the points as well with the Great Wall of China, right? We don't believe that we found all of it, right? Amazingly enough, they're still finding bits of it. So they expanded the empire's borders massively, stretching into Central Asia. Let's go back to a little map again. Let's see the Han Dynasty from a little bit of a map. Let's just try and get this sort of up on the map. Here we go. Some say that that's the Han Dynasty as it's really expanded. It's sort of it's expanded into Vietnam. It's expanded into parts of Korea, right? So it's really sort of becoming its own mark on history. And Yan, which is the modern day Xiang, which should be on your map there. There it is, alongside Hang. Xian or Xiang, which is on there, which is below the word Han, otherwise known as Yan. That was their city, and it became one of the world's largest and most organized cities. So thinking about all of these bits and pieces that we think about the Han Dynasty, right? My notes go to looking at some specifics, and those specifics are two sets of tombs. One's called the Maowangi tombs, and the other ones are called the Nanyi tombs, right? And they say about this one of the tombs, right, found in the 1970s, the Maowangi tombs. They actually found a female's tomb known as Yingji, and Yingji is one of the best preserved bodies ever found. And you know what? That's where we need to go. So we type this into the church search bar, and it's also useful doing something like this because you can, you can look back on it later. So here we go, Yinji, and if we type that in there, that should be coming up straight away. And the images. There she is. And that is a tomb. That is the body of a lady. That is apparently one of the best preserved bodies ever found from antiquity. And it's said that the Chinese like this lady to be referred to as the Lady Di of China. And her tomb was found inside a hill in Maowangi, near the city of Shanxi, during excavations from an air raid shelter in the 1970s. And if we go back again, and this is how they reckon that she looked. When they found it, the tomb structure that they were excavating, the funnel-like crypt was located. Now, this is really strange. It's typical of the Chinese, right? So they follow a funnel-like crypt. They follow sort of a tunnel, right, into a funnel-like crypt. Get my words out there. And it was located, only the Chinese could do this, 35 feet deep underground. They were only building an air raid shelter. So a body was protected by an airtight tomb sealed with charcoal and white clay and enclosed within 4 nesting lacquered coffins. So we sort of nestings is sort of like the Russian little doll figures with each other. And it's just a fascinating find. This, you know, what I might do is if we type on there, we might actually get some. So we got some nice dates here. So we know that she's she's a Han Dynasty leader, and there she is, died, 168 BC, right? And it's got some nice dates here, probably aged 49, right? And this is one of the lacquered coffins. And I've got to ask, is that does that beat a sarcophagus from ancient Egypt? They look amazing, right? And this was lacquered coffins. One of the things this ties in with another lecture that we did about Japan, and so what they created was sort of lacquered bowls. This is a lacquered coffin, and other occupants in here. Now think about this is the woman. She's the one in charge, right? The tomb complex included her husband, known as Shi Hang, the Marquis of Dai, and possibly their son. And the other bodies were not as well preserved as Yingji. Now, if we think again, I think we might actually there's a body again, right? It's an extremely strange sight. It really is, and I'm going to say something that maybe I can be given forgiveness. My nan died. My nan got to 102, right? And she looked like this, alive. So basically, you've got a bit of a diagram of a tomb there, and look at that there. You look at that there. That's a silk. This is this has been draped over the coffin, right? So it's a Western hand painted silk found draped over the coffin, right? So again, let's go with the dates of this. This is before Julius Caesar, right? This is 100 years before Julius Caesar, right? This is in China, and this is extremely well preserved archaeology. This is like time travel, right? So if we go back to and we think, right, let's just see if we can find some more images. Hang on a minute, have we got any of the artifacts? There's another one of the bodies there. Ah, right. And look at the detail there. So these silks and the detail that these people are buried with, right? And what I need to do is mention something else at this point, right? This is really well preserved archaeology, and if I'm gonna see if we can get some artifacts in here as well. We type in the word artifacts. Let's just see if we can find anything else on here. Um, oh yeah, we've got quite a lot of stuff there, haven't we? So we've got the coffin there. We know that that's the coffin, right? Um, oh God, there's lots of things here. Shoes, slippers. Look at those cloth shoes there. Amazing detail there. And again, when we're oh, here we go. Oh, oh wow. Do you know, I used to one of the things I love things like this. I could actually look at this for hours, right? I really could. When I told you the sad story of the the time that I was editing a magazine called World Archaeology Report, and what we had, what I wanted to do in the middle of that was to have illustrations like this, right? And we brought on an artist, and we did actually do one or two illustrations like this, but obviously we got challenged by uh, World Current Archaeology, and they sort of took our audience and stuff. But I love little things like this because I didn't expect this when we did. But there's a multiple coffin. It's all lacquered, right? And there's all these dolls. We could show you one or two of these dolls afterwards, but we can show all the sort of gifts and stuff here, and it's like all these things buried. It's just unreal, really. And it goes to so I'll tell you a little bit about and we'll have a look at one of the dolls because I saw one of the dolls before we come onto this image. So the tomb contained over 1,400 artifacts, including silk garments, lacquerware. So it's all sort of lacquered wear. So we got makeup and food, providing insight into the elite lifestyle and burial practices of the Han Dynasty. Right, so this is unbelievable. This is you've got the four coffins there, and she's sort of wrapped in another sarcophagus in the middle, right? And then what we've then got, and this ties us in with the body at St. Bede's, which was found, which was opened in the 1980s, which Andy mentioned last week, right? And back to, and look at there's the load of robes on the right there. I got to put this body. I got to show the body as well, and it says about the state of the body. This one, because there were other bodies there, but this was the well preserved one, well preserved one. So there was. Oh yeah, there's one of the dolls. They found lots of dolls, loads of dolls with her, and I'm not going to make the quite you know a patronizing thing and saying, oh, obviously she's a woman, she's going to have lots of dolls. Um, to Hamoon had lots of dolls as well, so it doesn't mean anything. You got these special things being buried with somebody, which in themselves are beautiful pieces of works of art. They show a world. You're just looking at that and you're thinking, oh my God, how old is this? It's 2000, 160 odd years old. Lots of these buried. These are part of the 1,400 artifacts. So if we go back to the body again, and then we go, it's really difficult looking at this for me because one, I don't like, I got, as you know, I like a level of respect for looking at these things. And I made that comparison with my nan because my nan like weighed something ridiculous when she passed away, right? You're talking about, I think, under 5 stone. It was ridiculous, right? She's 102, right? But her skin was like this, you know, just before she passed away. So, so there's words here that are really difficult to put across, right? So it's so moist and lifelike. Despite being over 2,000 years old, Yingji's skin was still soft and her joints were flexible. Now, if we were to read that line again, the last line, Yingji's skin was still soft and her joints were flexible. Now, I know full well, right? I know full well that decay in Western bodies starts instantly, right? And how they treated this body in the way that they did allowed us to see the body in the way that we're looking at now. I gotta let the cat in a minute. Come on, you coming in? Right, crack on. Um, so they say in this that the hair, including her eyelashes and eyebrows, was still completely intact. Right, so that's after 2,000 years. And they say as well that internal organs remained in good condition, and an autopsy was performed by researchers. So, you know, remember this is 2,160 years old plus, right? Traces of type A blood were found in her veins, so there was still blood in her veins. So her body was submerged in an unknown reddish liquid that, although with the airtight tomb, helped prevent decay. Right, so it was like her body was in some kind of liquid, right? So when this was discovered, it was opened in the 1970s, 1971, amazingly enough, right? And amazingly enough, we've still got the body preserved like this, which is absolutely great, right? And then it sort of then thinking about this, right? We also know about her final meal. Let's talk about that, right? So a life and death status as the wife of the Marquis of Dai, Yingji lived a life of luxury and opulence. So she was the one who was markedly buried with all the love and affection and everything deserved in life as it was in death. And the cause of death, the autopsy revealed she was overweight. Doesn't look overweight to me. And suffered from numerous health problems while she was 49, including heart disease, diabetes, hypertension. My God, it's almost as if she's just gone to the doctors. Liver disease and gallstones. She likely died from a heart attack. So these notes say 50, the other ones say 49. We give or take a year. And a final meal, folks. Let's look at a final meal, right? So a final meal, if we think about Otzi the Iceman. So when we let's just compare, right? You can compare her with Otzi the Iceman. So we've analysed Otzi the Iceman. Otzi the Iceman is over 5,000 years old, right? She is 2,160 years, and Otzi the Iceman's obviously would have been up in the ice, and she's not in the ice. She's in this fluid. And when you think about the fluid, it's almost as if you think about the likes of Nelson after the Battle of Trafalgar. He's put in, what is it, brandy, a barrel of brandy. She's not. She's put in this weird fluid. So analysis of her stomach contents revealed 138 melon seeds, suggesting she died in the summer and within 2 or 3 hours of eating the fruit. So she just scoffed the melon down. She just scoffed it down. So if we sort of change the image a little bit, we'll go on to something else in a moment. So let's just, again, scrolling through this. Oh yeah, and not there is one of the other bodies, which is obviously not as well preserved as her. In fact, can't even compare it. So research the exceptional preservation of her body, not her husband here, the Marquis, right? The exceptional preservation of her body and tomb artifacts has offered valuable information to historians and archaeologists and scientists about ancient Chinese burial practices, medicine, and culture. Naturally. So display her remains and many of her artifacts are housed at the Hunan Museum in Shaanxi, China, right? So if you can remember Shaanxi, the sort of middle of sort of China from the other map that we showed in the Han world, right? So she was buried with honors within the heart of the beating heart of the Han Empire. And what they've done is sort of digital reconstructions and so on. And so obviously, if we go back to there's a YouTube video of this, and what we've got is that is the digital reconstruction. I know it doesn't look like there's any comparison, right? But that is the digital reconstruction, and I'm thinking that maybe, you know, they're saying in the most perfectly preserved mummy ever discovered. I would sort of agree with that. So what we got to do, we got to go on to something else now. The cat wants to leave me now. Go on, you're gonna go out. Go on, thank you. So we're gonna look at something else next. So what we got to do, we got to try and type in, right, something very, very different, because we're gonna go with my other notes now, and we're gonna look at some other tombs. See what we got. So there's another location that we're gonna go, which is the Nani King's Tomb in Ganzhou. So I'm now getting my Chinese again. It's Ganzhou. And there's a showcase of a blend of Han and local southern styles and contains over 1,000 burial items, including musical instruments and jade. That's where we're going to go next. So let's just let's type in this here. The Nanyi King's Tomb. The Nanyi King's Tomb. And what we've got images. And very, very different. Very, very different. So we've got very, very different. Let's try and get the best one. The whole museum dedicated to this. Look at that body. It's definitely something else, isn't it? It's, you know, very, 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 very different from the one we've actually just seen. And they've with this burial, right? They found not only sort of musical instruments and jade, they've found massive storage containers as well. So when we think about this world, and if we want to do a little bit of a comparison, and I think there's a good point I need to make now, right, with the way cultures have protected in a way, and maybe sort of not so. When we think about, we did Cyrus the Great last week with the Achaemenid Empire. His tomb is empty, right? Cyrus the Great's tomb is empty. There's nothing in it, right? When we think about the tomb of Emperor Hadrian, right? His tomb is empty, right? But it seems in China that what we do find is that we get a lot of really well preserved tombs from Chinese history, whether it's to do with superstition or whether it's to do with, you know, pure respect. What we do find with lots of Chinese stuff is that they're really well preserved and they're intact. So, you know, when Howard Carter's found Tutankhamun's tomb, you know, intact, slightly before the second opening, you know, as another lecture altogether, he said, "Oh, look, you know, I found an intact tomb," right? And then, you know, there's only one in Egypt, but in China there's a few of them, right, that are intact. the Nanji King's tomb is located in Guangzhou, China, and is part of a museum sort of that is sort of dedicated to this. It houses the 2,000-year-old tomb of Mo, the second king of the Nanji kingdom, right? Which is part of the Han dynasty, right? And this is discovered by chance again in 1983, not whilst they were building an underground shelter, right? The construction project, and it was 20 meters deep. So the one thing about this is again another example of a body really well preserved, and this is the body itself, not too far off Our Lady Die that we've just done. Right, this dates to 137 BC to 122 BC, and it was discovered intact in 1983, and they dedicated a museum to this in 1988. Right, so let's talk about the burial suit. Let's just give you another little bit of a burial suit. So there's a museum. So they found it, and they built a museum dedicated to it. Isn't it great? You know, I've got to explain something, right? When I can't stand the way that we just don't do enough in Britain to protect our history and archaeology. We do a tremendously bad job in Britain. In Wales is absolutely horrific, right? I've just found the chief executive, Cadw Welsh Historical Monuments, gets about £300,000 a year just to try and protect the history and archaeology of Wales, and all the money that our organisation gets goes on wages, not the preservation of buildings and archaeology. That's something that I'm into at this minute. In China, they build museums when they find a tomb. That's the way they treat their history and archaeology. And it's not to do with money, it's to do with the fact that they respect their history and archaeology. We don't. Wales is terrible. England's a little bit better, and Scotland is on the top of the list of brilliantness. However, if we look at this again, it don't even look real, does it? You know, but it is. And so there we go. It's again, the museum was built around the original tomb site, which is buried 20 meters deep beneath the museum. However, they've still got access to it. It displays over 1,000 artifacts found inside, including the king's burial suit, made of, wait for it, 2,291 pieces of jade sewn with silk. So that there is jade. It just don't look real. But this actually, if you look at Palenque, you will find another leader in Central America that's also, he's got a jade mask, you know, brilliant jade mask. The green's different than this one. But again, 2,291 pieces of jade, amazingly enough. And again, they make such a huge effort. And also, right, I want to show you something else, right? No, I'm not a Chinese spy trying to sell Chinese archaeology, right? But I am selling Chinese archaeology as part of all our history. I want to show you how the Chinese display their archaeological sites after they found them, right? I want to show you this, so you know what I'm on about when I'm talking about it. So here we go. We should come up straight away. Okay, where is it? Come on, is it going to come up? It's not come up. It didn't come up. It didn't come up. Hang on, let's just type this in again. Right, hang on a minute. Just let me type this in again. Side of there we go. Nan Yi Kingdom. Right, here we go. Look at this. they've this is close to the museum. Well, it's near the museum. So they found the palace, right? And they this is huge. It is. I got another image here. I'll show you the one I've got here, right? This is a massive palace, and they built basically an aircraft hangar over it and a display in it, and you can see it all. Now this is how. Oh yeah. Right. Okay. Too excited because there's just so much to show you. Right. So this is the archaeology of this sort of palace. Look at it. It's still there. They built this sort of hangar over it. It's amazing. Look at that. It's just like wow. You know, I get so excited by the way that they treat their history in China, and there it is. And there's there you go. There's this palace, and as they thought, all right, we found the palace. We'll probably put an aircraft hangar over it. We'll excavate and we'll show it to people forever. And that's what they do. You don't do this in this country, and this sounds very political, doesn't it? But the one thing I would say is that we need to learn from we need to learn from, you know, the how way Chinese people do things, because it's almost as if they respect their history far more than we do. And you know, you guys turn up every week, right? And you love seeing, you know, the history and archaeology, and look at that there. They you can you know, they built this sort of miniature sort of museum over the tomb itself, and you there it is. It's down under the ground, and you've got this. You're really excited with this, and it's just like, how much respect do they have for their history? So much. And maybe if we type, actually, guys, I'm just trying to keep my excitement from. I can't tell you, but I've had a email about something really important and to do with my acting career, but I can't tell you. But I'm trying to keep that excitement. So but these are some of the artifacts. And it's jade. It's all jade. Look at that jade, the carved jade. It's like amazing. I think that's jade as well, isn't it? There, so you've got all these jade little figures, and they find this stuff, and again, is it, you know, okay? Let me articulate the bloody words, right? We haven't got Roman emperors like this preserved, right? And I think it's simply because that the Roman Empire ended, right? It ended. Get over it, right? But the Chinese kept doing their stuff, so they've you know, for 4,000 years, up until sort of you know, just around the end of the First World War, it's almost as if they've had a continuity of history. We've had all these little dynasties. That dynasty didn't like that dynasty, you know, they did things differently. But it's almost as if, even though stuff is buried under the ground, and people could have found this stuff, right? They did. You know, the Valley of the Kings, for example. We know where the tomb of Seti the Great is, and we know where the tomb of the Ramesses is, and all the bloody rest of it. You know, but we find one tomb that's intact, tomb of Hamu. Now, China's in the same game. It's like we know where all the people are buried, but we still haven't dug them up, and then we dig them up in future generations, and lo and behold, we build museums around them, and we've got all the artifacts and everything's intact. So what is different about how we think about things in the West compared to how they think about things in China? You know, there's something ultimately different. And I can't get that dynamic at this minute. And it's something that has always been in my mind since I did my first archaeological qualification at Leicester University at the beginning of the thousands. So anyway, let's just, I might actually have a little break in a minute. So what we might do is we've got to so what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do is I'm gonna give you a bit of an overview of the next things we're going to do tonight, and let's just sort of try and give you an idea now. So I'm going to mention about the Silk Route, and I'm going to mention about the Roman thing in London, the collapse of the Pan Empire, and obviously we've got the discussion after this. So okay, so 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 again, if we what I might do is I might sort of probably expand a little bit more on some of these things next week. So if some of you say, I want to know a little bit more about that, then we'll do it next week, if that's okay with you guys. This is a tiny little bit of an overview, really. So we've got the Silk Road, and what we've got there. And let's just try and let's just do one of those things. Yeah, that'll be good. Okay. And that's not really right, is it? I want to give you that one. That's what I want to do. That sort of that shows it all, doesn't it? So that sort of gets it all in there. That gets all my points in there, really. And I think the point is that there are things on that map. You obviously the Roman Empire, right? You've got the Persian world, you've got China. Guess what? We haven't mentioned these Indian kingdoms. We haven't mentioned that, right? So I think there's a strong point to be made here, right? The reason why the Silk Route works is because people ain't killing each other every 5 minutes. So there must have been an understanding with going from Chan to Dihan and Kashgar over towards Mir and Damascus. And there must have been an understanding for a Silk Route to work. Because if you're fighting and warring all the time, nobody's going to use it. It's going to be too dangerous. Why would we go there? So what we got the idea of sort of wagon trains and so on. And one of the people who actually writes about this is Marco Polo in the 1320s. Marco Polo writes about the Silk Route and stuff, and it's still sort of going at that stage. It still is sort of today in a way, except with lorries. And I think one thing that's missed, and I think this is something that Anne likes to say, peace. Was there a time when the world was at peace and stuff? And in a way, I think these traders between China to the Roman world are in a world of peace, in a mantle in their minds, because they wouldn't have been able to do this. You can't take silks, and you can't take silks all the way from China thinking that you're going to be stabbed halfway and it's going to be pointless and you're never going to see your children again, right? So you're going to do it because you know you're going to go home. So it must be quite safe. So now here's where things get really interesting. The Han Dynasty helped open up the Silk Road. This is their big achievement. Forget the Great Wall of China, that's the boys, isn't it? So the Han Dynasty helped open the Silk Road, a vast trade network linking China to the Middle East, India, and even Europe. Through this, China traded silks, spices, and jade, and in return got glass, horses, and sometimes even Roman coins. So these things, we'll talk a little bit about that after the break. The other thing after the break will be the astonishing finds in London, East Asian DNA, found in 2016. I like that one, I really do. The collapse of the Han Dynasty. And obviously we can ask any questions at the end. So what I'm going to do now is that we're gonna have a break. And if we don't get through all this tonight, it don't matter, because we're going to be visiting this again next week. We really are. And I found that other thing on my other device about this thing in Cumbria that I wanted to mention, that Andrew knows about. But we'll see if we can do it. So I'm just going to stop sharing. And let's see if we can get a bit of light here. And where did Dave go?
He just seemed to drop out about nearly half an hour ago. I thought he might come back, but it pinged and he'd gone. I don't know.
My God, the three of us, four of us. Right, I gotta phone Michelle in the break to tell her the news. I can't say anything. Right, okay.
Time for a cup of tea, eh? Time for a cup of tea. Have a break, and then we'll see you in 15 or something.
Yeah, no, I just want to know if you've got anything you want to say, guys. Anything you want to say, Will?
Well, I think it's very interesting. If you follow Jackie Chan movies, Chinese movies, they tell you
come on,
about.
you can't just mention Jackie Chan.
Hang on. They tell you about the Chinese armies, the different fortresses that were along the Silk Route that were there to preserve the integrity of the Silk Route and protect it from the bandits, because of the fact that there was so much money involved in selling silk, and as you say, in the trade that came from east to west or west to east. It was tremendous. And some very good Chinese movies with English subtitles. Jackie Chan's in the middle.
You just can't mention Jackie Chan. It's just like, he's great, isn't he? War is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Sorry, he was on a plane singing that one. Sorry, Anne. Yeah, there we go. Anne.
I think the preservations and the photographs of them were wondrous. You know, things like the lady at Newey, just
Lady Di.
Pardon?
Yeah, the Lady Di of China, we'll call her.
Yeah, well, she
yeah.
It was amazing that the way her body had been protected, and as I say, some of the other things were just, I don't know, spectacular, really spectacular. I mean, we've seen a lot of spectacular things, haven't we? But I think the preservations were amazing, truly amazing.
And I think it needs to be said that China, the landscape and the some of the things that have been buried, you could say some of the conditions that you would find in certain parts of Europe, but we don't get that body preservation, right? So it must be a lot to do with the fact, not the environment. It must be a lot to do with the fact that how we have treated our history within the landscape, within our own embodied thinking. And
do you think that's been? I mean, I know some of these things have been discovered more recently, but would some of this, if something had been discovered earlier, would all this have been? Is it a sort of Chinese? I don't know. I mean, I've read books about, where they had, when we went round slaughtering people around the world, they sent ambassador ships out and sent embassies all over the world, when we were fighting in South America, that kind of thing. And whether that enabled this because they were not so aggressive. So I don't know.
I think.
Could I just make a comment?
Yeah, go on.
The Chinese people appreciate, one, their elders, and two, their ancestors.
Yes.
And the Chinese always refer to the fact that they're always with their ancestors. So, Carl, your comment about preservation of their history, preservation of their ancestors, recognizing that through life. And again, when you look at a Chinese family today, the grandmother, the grandfather live with a family, the eldest son, or whoever's next in line, until they die. They don't park them in a home like the Western world does. They maintain the family unit, which is the key thing. And I think that's a very reflective when you talk about 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years of history, up until certainly, as you say, the fall Chinese Communist rule 1947. Up until that point, China has always done this. And even today, I think you will find that Chinese families look after their elders. They have respect for their elders, and they passed.
Can I just say one thing? The one thing that I'm hitting now is that I'm the idea of some levels of communism, right, and some parts of Islam, right, go out and destroy everything that's gone before, right? But this is China's the home, as far as I'm concerned, of communism, not Russia, right? Some people would want me to be burnt at a stake for that, but real communism is China, right? That's what I feel. Not Russia, China, right? China hasn't gone removing its identity, right? Where Cambodia, Pol Pot did, where they did this in China. They did this in Russia, not China. So that's the point. So they're removing their history in Russia. They're removing it in Cambodia. And also, if you want to look at an early form of communism, being the French Revolution of 1789, right? They remove all this early stuff, right? They want it gone, right? But China doesn't. And that is because it's back to what you said, Will. No matter what happens in China, they've got a respect. Somewhere along the line, there's a respect, right? There's a respect for history. And that's important. It's not destroyed and erased. It's remained within their consciousness. And that is very important. I think this is allowed China to retain its identity.
Do you think their religions also have? They have very different forms of religion than us, don't they? Do you think?
But they've lots of different religions. Yeah. I lots of different religions. But then again, you can argue that religion was banned. Religion has been banned in the pure communist ideology.
Yes,
right.
That came later. Yeah.
But the point, Taoism and all the rest of it, but there are bits coming back in and whatever. But the point is, it's what the Chinese have done. They said, look, whatever you are, whether you're a communist, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're into Taoism, whether you do this and that, we've got an identity, and we cannot allow that identity to be destroyed. It's who we are, it's what we are, and this stuff that I'm showing you today is important and relevant. In the West, we don't think like that.
No, and it's always surprising, since we all came from hunter-gatherers, that you get whole huge areas of like China, huge area, or India or anything, who do have these very different ways of looking at it, which you've been trying to explain, but it's still a story of what's happened to change people in that way. Some respect their old folk and some don't. What's happened?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
I to be honest, okay, I'll can I just tell you something else this week, which is quite awkward, right? I'm going to spit it out very much with what you've just said, right? There's there was a group of researchers called Baron Blackett and Alan Wilson, right, into King Arthur. Not talking about whether you believe any of this stuff or not. It's not the issue, right? And there was this guy comes in a few years back, and he called Ross Broadstock, and he says, right, I want to preserve their work. I want to tell the world about their work, whether it's the right or the wrong thing to do. I want to tell the world about it, right? So anyway, so what happens within the space of 1 year, right? Ross Broadstock dies in October the 17th, and then Alan Wilson dies, and then Baron Blackett dies, all within the space of a year, which sounds a bit weird, but anyway, when Baron Blackett dies, there's all these supporters saying, oh, we should do something about preserving all this stuff, right? And then the house is left with all the research stuff in it. Nobody cares about it. And now they're all in a flap that people have been in there and defiled this and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, if you really, really cared about what the guy's research, you would have gone in a hook, line, and sinker, and you'd have got it out legally or illegally, whatever. But you didn't, right? So it obviously proves you didn't really value this stuff as much as the Chinese value it.
Yeah. I was going to say, even under Mao and communism, they got rid of the emperor, but they still kept the Forbidden City and still kept their history.
Yes, that's exactly my point, and that is exactly my point. And I do you know what, right? Do you know what, we've got this library of books that come from Cumbria, and I thought it was important. Whatever books that we could have, lots of these books are really great, Andy, when we've eventually got them all on the shelves and sorted out. They're really good. I'm glad we saved that. But most of that would have gone in a skip, yeah. Right? Most of that would have gone in a skip, and she was going to put it in a skip, right? He said, I don't want to put it in a skip, but I'll end up putting it in a skip if you don't want it. So we ended up with those books. It was great. I love it. Great. But the point is that we don't value our history enough. We don't feel it. We don't hold it as much as we should, right? And we should hold it. It's who we are. It's our identity. Whether you're black, white, green, grey, or whatever, I don't care. It's our identity, right? And the Chinese have found a way. Why can't we find a way? We've got to find a way.
Yeah. The other side of that, if you think of Britain as a whole, right? Britain's a conglomerate of peoples. China has poor streams from 10,000 years ago up to today. You've got families who've stayed in the same areas with a bit of migration because of the wars, etc. But families who've stayed in the same areas. Whereas Britain, the Anglo-Saxons, if you look at all the tribes that have come into Britain before the Romans, after the Romans, up until even today, the point of migration, Britain has been a focal point, and you've got a melding of communities and language, because half the language we're using is a bit Roman, it's a bit Latin, it's a bit Sanskrit, it's a bit French, it's a bit this, it's a bit that. English is an adapted language.
Yeah.
It's a conglomerate, and this is the problem. The mindset of the people, unlike in the old world, so India and Asia, in Asia, China and India, for instance, the old world, totally different mentality to the Western world, and this is why the Western world stuff is here today and it's gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the point is, you've I'm going to take you to task on one thing there, right? And don't take this personally. You've given an excuse for our history not to be there, right? In regards to China, they've basically said, even though things have moved around, we've had Mongols, Chinese, all the rest of it, we've still kept our history, right? Religion, changing, communism, all these different things, we've still kept it, right? the argument is we could have still done the same here. We could have done the same here with
but
all these different people coming in. We could have done it, but we didn't. We chose not to.
Yeah, but even after 1,000 years, the Western world doesn't have a focal mutual interest. Individuals are individual. Capitalism is about being number one, top of the tree, and putting everything in your own pocket. That's not the mentality of the rest of the world up until 1947, because most of India and Asia in particular were concerned about preserving themselves. Okay, they had a structured society. They may not have had a total liberty in terms of what they are, but the Western world is a different developmental pathway. And because we've done that, we followed that route. You listen to Trump now. What's Trump about? He's about number one. I'm the top of the tree. I'm going to do everything. I'm going to say everything, and everybody's going to listen to me. He's an autocrat. There were autocrats in China, but they had a structure where you had the lower princes in each of these kingdoms or princedoms that they had throughout China. The same in India, when you talk about the Mughal Empire and you talk about the various elements. But we don't have that in the Western world. It's about the man at the top who's got the money, who's keeping it to himself, who's not necessarily sharing it, who's not developing the world. And it's all take, and flush it in the toilet. And to hell with the rest of humanity. And that's basically what Trump is doing. He's at the pillar today, and that's what he's doing. So.
You're so right, Bill.
On that note, guys, I'm really aware of time now. It's 8:40. Where it would be nice to be finished at 9:30, and I'm gonna say everybody have a 10-minute break, and we've got to come back on because
Okay.
we're gonna have to crack on. So 10 minutes. We're back at 8:53. Speak to you then.
You're mute.
Yeah, sorry, I know. I just noticed. I say just a thing, a cup of tea. That's the one thing we can thank China for. Cup of tea, a cup of chai.
No, I don't drink tea at all.
Oh, you don't?
I've never liked tea all my life. In fact, it's my mother's fault. It was rationed in the war.
Yes.
And she and my father are very fond of tea. And my father was able to get extra milk when I was little.
Right.
So they didn't give me any tea, fed me on milk, and didn't encourage me ever to start tea. And I've never liked it.
Okay. Well.
So I drink coffee like there's no tomorrow. It's kind of, I drink coffee all the while.
Yeah. Well, I used to drink a lot of coffee, and I probably, when I was working, let's go back 30 years anyway, I'd probably drink 12 cups of brewed coffee a day in America, in typical America. You have the carafe and you fill the carafe up and you empty it, and then you go back midday and you fill it up again and you empty it. And you work in an office with, say, 8 or 10 people, depending, and the coffee pot is always on.
Yeah.
And it's drip coffee and it's strong coffee, and sometimes the coffee pot sits for 3 hours because nobody went and made it. But then you get in the dregs and it comes out like toffee, molasses. Um, yeah, but I gave up coffee, actually, not by choice, but through accident, perhaps, in February. And I just went off it, and I haven't had a coffee for the last 7 months. So
Well, I've been about that long. I was drinking coffee all the while, full, proper coffee. And then I've done a lot of looking into diseases of old age and lifestyles that affect it. And one of the things is caffeine, particularly.
yes.
Now I've got a cup of decaf coffee.
Oh,
I can
decaf.
get it and make it in a ground, and it's nicer than. So yes,
Right.
so I live on that now instead.
Yeah. Well, I think it might be the caffeine in the tea, and I drink a fair amount of tea. Well, 4 to 6 cups of tea or mugs of tea a day, perhaps. I still drink a lot, but I used to drink a lot of coffee as well. And 4 cups, in recent years, 4 cups of coffee, 4 cups of tea. But I tend to, for probably most of my working life, I wouldn't get to bed till 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd survive on 5 hours of sleep.
So your
I
coffee
used
was
to
keeping you awake.
I used to tap my forehead 5 hours, 5 times before I hit the pillow, and I'd wake up in 5 hours. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, wake up seven. Well, in the last 5 years, I stay up till 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Various projects I work on. I got something in my head. I want to get it done. I do it, and then I'll nap midday, 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock or whatever it is, and then pick up later. And then so
Yeah.
I used to catnap it. I used to travel on the bus when I started working, so I go from the Rumney Valley, from Rumney to Merthyr Tydfil, and I'd go to sleep on the bus going, and I'd wake up at the bus stop, and
How
I'd
did you
sleep on the
wake
bus
up? Did
coming
somebody
home,
wake you up?
and I'd wake up at my stop, So I used to time it.
I say, didn't you sometimes go past your stop if you were asleep?
No,
I'm sure I would.
maybe only once in my time frame that I can remember doing that, and it was only a matter
You
of
ended up in Barry that night, didn't you?
half a mile. Ended up in Barry, down at the old club there on the front or something.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm. Oh, we're going to crack on, and tonight's worked out a bit weird, to be honest with you, because I thought we were gonna, I was gonna, I was gonna run out of what I wanted to do, but we're not there. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna probably revisit some of these like silk routey things next week, but I just want to mention a little bit more about that. I want to do this burial in London, which is quite interesting. And then we'll just see if there's any questions at the end. So right, anyway, let's crack on. So let's go back to the silk routes. So here we go. There we go. Coffee, is it, or tea? Are we done? I actually, do you know what I drink? I drink camp coffee. I cannot drink normal coffee.
My sister's like that. She's drunk camp all her life.
I've been camp all my life, but I still drink it as well.
Yeah, no, actually, as a young boy growing up, and I'd say to you, we couldn't afford Nescafe when I was in my family when between the ages of 1 and 10 or 1 and 15. My mother always bought canned coffee in the bottle, but it's a chicory essence. It's not actually coffee.
Exactly.
Chicory essence, so there's a difference.
Do you know how much a jar of bloody coffee is now? £6. I can't afford that.
Yeah, no, it's crazy price.
Do you know when I go on set, they've got these sachets, and I just think, right, I'll bring a few sachets back. But on set, I drink about 6 or 7 cups of coffee, right? But I'm not supposed to be drinking coffee. I actually I had an addiction to drinking coffee. I'd drink about 20 cups a day. So anyway, crack on with what we were talking about. So when we again, let's just go back. So we got the Silk Road there, and we got an idea of that. So if we type in an image of the Han Dynasty again, right? Just to type in that image of the Han Dynasty, right? And then you'll start to get an idea where we're at. I think that sort of this map shows it quite well. My God, I got 2 phones ringing. Hang on a minute. 1 second. Hiya, Azalea. I'm smack bang in the middle of a lecture online. So can I phone you back in about 40 minutes? Of course, darling. Yeah, that's fine. I need to have a chat with you, babe. 2 top actors like you and me, and I'll speak to you then. Perfect. Nice one. Bye-bye. 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 Bye. Sorry about that, guys. So right, this thing about I said about there we go. We've got the Han Dynasty, we've got the map, we've got the Silk Road that we mentioned. You can see there it's sort of, you know, there they're going, they're sort of going into this sort of domain where it says Central Asian Protectorates. And you stand and think, oh, why are they there? It's all to do with this route, you know. It's all to do with the Silk Road, which is the big achievement of the Han Dynasty. It really, really is. This vast trade network. And again, we're talking about other things moving around. We have found a glass bowl, right? A Roman period glass bowl from the Roman Empire within the land of the Han Empire. It's obviously come via the Silk Route. And the coins as well. We're not going to do the coins tonight, by the way, because I want to do this find in London. Now, so again, what do you think about when you think about the Silk Route, right? You think, what do you think about? Just one quick thing again. You know, up there in the north, you've got the Great Wall of China and all the rest of it. You're moving there up towards the Central Asian Protectorates, and you're thinking about, you know, things are going that way, you know, above the land of the Mongols and so on, but actually below the land of the Mongols, I should say, within the sort of borders of that. But then what we've got, if we sort of go back to this Silk Road, right? Oh, there. Oh God, we just lost it then. Hang on a minute. Let's go back to there. The Silk Route. We put that in there again. The Silk Route and the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty, and we'll get the right one. There we go. Han Dynasty. There we go. And again, we're looking at sort of there we go. We're like that, don't we? This is a medieval sort of description of Marco Polo type thing. But one thing that it's not just one road, right? It's not just like, you know, Route 66 in the States or whatever it is. It's a load of different roadways, right? It wasn't a single road. It was a series of land, and it could be said that there's a sea route as well that sort of dots around the coastline, you know. So goods and this is the thing as well. We were talking about this before the break, you know, how things are kept and preserved and so on. So goods and ideas passed both ways, including Buddhism from India to China. You know, we're thinking about that. Um, and and maybe and this key article that we're looking at tonight, and the headlines of it, I'm going to put the headlines on there. It specifically says about, you know, the links between the two empires, the Roman Empire and the Chinese Empire, made that. And again, this point that I made about Chinese silk has been found in Roman tombs. Yes, it has. Silk has been found in Egypt. Yes, it has. Actually, silk has been found in Egypt a lot earlier. We've done a lecture on this. We've found examples of silk a lot earlier, before the idea of the Silk Route. The Silk Route itself, the routeway itself, is basically really being established probably as far back as 200 years BC, which again is the period of the beginning of the Han Dynasty. There's just not just a coincidence there. And we just think about, just when we, I think the thought that I'm trying to get out here, if we talk about this here, this sort of there, oh, that's a nice one there. Hang on, oh, hang on, there, hang on, there. Hey, let it happen on the screen. Okay, you can see what's going on there, can't you? All of this going on. And this is, and actually this Parthian Empire is the new name for the second empire, the second Persian Empire, that that came after the Achaemenids. That's a name that you can think of there. And you can see all the little routeways and stuff. And you know, it's not just one route. So this is really, really important, you know, reaching the likes of Tyre, you know, the Phoenicians. So the Phoenicians are going to take the silk from Tyre all the way around the Mediterranean Sea. So you can see here as well, this chart, that, you know, you've got so the Bactrian camels, and you've got horse, and you've got wool and pelts and rugs, and skins as well, gold, silver, blown glass, purple dye, okay, you cotton, silk, paper, porcelain, and tea. All of these things are going to be traded across this route. And just think, being in a market in Alexandria, which is going to be the big market along the coast of Egypt, and think about silk being traded in the markets in London. It's just difficult to get that in our minds, you know, it really, really is. So, because it has moved, you know, we spoke about that little container, didn't we? That little 2.5-inch container that my friend Nancy Rosenberg was involved with. We think about that, and that's one little container with the cream in it, right? There were tens of thousands of them once, as there would be loads of examples of silk as well. So the next thing I'm going to go to, I want to come back to this next week, right? When obviously we've got more people. And let's go to the article I've actually found online, which is, there you go, headlines: Chinese skeletons found in a Roman cemetery promise to rewrite history, 2016. And I absolutely love this piece. I'm pretty sure that we may have done it in a class with you guys online before you, Anne. It would have been Gilbert, and it would have been before Margaret, wouldn't it, Andy? It basically, I can't remember who was in the class back then. I think Claire was still involved about 2016. I think we may have done this online there. But there you go, a headline there: a meeting of two ancient empires. And it says, how did two Chinese skeletons find their way into a Roman cemetery in London. I've said 3 skeletons. I'm pretty sure it was they found another one, but it's 2 in the article. And it's I think this is absolutely amazing. So that's a Chinese DNA guy there with the jaw and all the rest of it. It's great, in Londinium. So astonishing find in London, East Asian DNA in Roman Britain. In 2016, archaeologists working in Southwark, again, that little container I mentioned, that little tin container, that was actually found in Southwark as well at the temple sites. So 2016, archaeologists working in Southwark, London, made a surprising discovery in a Roman cemetery. They found 2 skeletons that were roughly 1,800 years old. DNA tests showed that these individuals had East Asian, likely Chinese ancestry. Amazing that, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. So there it is. Archaeologists analysed 22 skeletons, and 2, there you go. 2 of the skeletons have a morphology that suggests Asian ancestry. It suggests the links between China and Rome were stronger than believed. Here we go. Look at these facts and figures. They were 2 powerful ancient empires separated by more than 5,000 miles of imposing mountain ranges, barren desert, and exposed steppe grasslands. Yet a collection of seemingly unremarkable bones discovered in a Roman cemetery in London has provided new insights into the links between the Roman Empire and Imperial China. I think this absolutely amazing. Totally and utterly amazing. I've got to make sure that I keep power on this. And there they go. They're looking at the jawbones and so on. And there you go. Analysis of the skeletons found in a Roman cemetery in South London have revealed that 2 of the people buried there between, there we go, late 100s, maybe into the 300s, had Asian ancestry and possibly from China. It provides new evidence of the links between the empires. And I think the one thing about this to be said is that I don't think that they analysed everything, and all the bones, because what we usually do, we take a sample, and more of them may have actually, be with the ancestry or even Chinese themselves. Seneca the Younger described how silk cloth appeared to have a corrupting influence on the bodies of women, and said the material did not hide the body nor even one's decency. Really interesting. Roman writer Seneca. The finds promise to rewrite the history of the Romans, definitely. While it is known that there was extensive trade between the Chinese and ancient Romans along what became known as the Silk Route, the 2 empires were thought to have viewed each other warily. Accounts from the time suggest the Chinese were curious about the tale and virtuous people. The tall, there we go, not the tail, the tall and virtuous people of Rome, while the Romans found their rivals in the East mysterious but valued their silk cloth. Despite the trade between the empires, however, only one person of ancient ancestry has ever been found on sites dating back to the Roman Empire, an adult man unearthed at Vagnari in Italy. So they found somebody from Asian ancestry. There we go. All the way from the Far East. And it goes on to say, but now the ancestral research led by the Museum of London has revealed 2 more individuals of Asian ancestry buried among the remains of other citizens of ancient Londinium. It's really difficult to get that in my mind again. So according to the Times, while experts have not been able to identify the exact origins, it is likely that these people had come from China. It's just how do you reckon that, and the expansion of the Roman Empire across most of the Western Europe and the Mediterranean led to the assimilation and movement of many ethnically and geographically diverse communities. Now, I'm going to spit it out, right? I'm going to spit it out. This thing, this you wouldn't have seen it. You wouldn't have seen it, Will. But there's a bit of controversy about a BBC series over here, which has a number of Black African people as Anglo-Saxons coming over to Britain, fighting native peoples and the Roman population and the native British people in the AD 500-600s. This is what's shown in this TV show. And people are in uproar about this, saying, "Oh, we didn't have Black Africans here fighting with the Anglo-Saxons then." And there's in uproar about it, right? I've said it now, but the point is, if I wrote a TV script and it was on television, and I had a couple of Chinese people there, and I had a couple of Black African people there, right? People would say I'm making it up, but I'm not, because it's in the archaeology. It's real. It's actual archaeological evidence. So back to this. So the discovery, the burial site, as we know, AD 200. That was the peak of Roman Britain, by the way. That was the best of Roman Britain, AD 200. And I'm going to say it was likely, including Ireland and Scotland and all the islands, it was likely the population was at maximum 7 million people. And it would never get back there until the 1300s, right? The population would basically slump to about 2 million, into sometime about the 500s. And then maybe maybe 3 million. But that was the peak of Roman Britain, AD 200. Bones showed no signs of trauma or slavery. They seemed to be buried respectfully. Oh my God, they weren't slaves! Of course they weren't slaves, they were traders. The idea they may have arrived via the Silk Road through the Roman Empire's eastern connections, possibly as traders or servants. Oh, let's not do the servants bit. Let's just not do that. Why would these? I got a question now. Why would they be servants or slaves? They're in good condition, right? No, traders. Why not? It's one of these moments where archaeology really surprises us, and this for me is a big surprise. It really, really is. What were these people doing here? That's a big question. Let's just call them traders. Were they travelers or traders? The interesting thing is, the big question is, were they diplomats? Can you imagine? Yeah, you mentioned this earlier on, Will, about the Chinese going out sometime in the medieval period, chucking diplomats everywhere. Yeah. But what if they did it earlier? What if the Han Dynasty did it earlier? What if these were actually diplomats?
Yeah, I mentioned that.
What if, for example, Will, right, there was a Roman embassy in China, and there was a Chinese embassy in Rome.
Right.
Maybe they had one in London. You know what I mean?
But
this is the point.
If you consider when they got to Rome, and they were traders, and they fell under the influence of a very prominent Roman who said you can make more money if you go up through Europe and if we go to Britain. And if you take your wares to Britain, you're going to have a new market. So why don't you come to me? So they basically had a Roman sponsor, which was common in Rome, right? The structure, that they had sponsorship. And the guy said, come with me on a trip. We'll go up to Londinium, and you're going to find a new market for your product, but you're going to give me a commission, by the way, for doing it.
Oh, well, these are the Romans after all. It's bound to be a commission. But the point, the most exciting thing with this is, were these actually children of traders? So therefore, it's not just one generation, it's two generations. Or maybe this, I think they could have worked out in the DNA what generation stuff this was. But it's like, this is really interesting stuff with these children of traders. Who were they? What's going on? All these questions. So so this is so when we now look at London, we think of London in a very different way, right? Andy knows this full well. I'm not a woke archaeologist. I'm not somebody who wants to parachute sort of false things from the past into the present, right? But when you've actually got archaeology, when you've actually got I'm going to say I believe that the Roman world was much more cosmopolitan than historians want us to believe. It was massively cosmopolitan. You know, in the Roman Empire, and this is something that I do say, it was more likely to see somebody with black skin in Britain, right, in AD 200, as it was to see a Roman legionary wandering down the streets. So in other words, you're more likely to see a trader from Africa in Londinium than you are to see a Roman soldier that was born in Rome.
But you
So
talk about Scipio being a new being a African, and
the general Scipio,
they had Nubian soldiers from North Africa. So the North
yes,
African tribes were black.
yes, cavalry,
And in
yes,
fact, and we know that you didn't put British soldiers in Britain. You took British soldiers and you put them in Germany, and you put German soldiers in
yes,
Britain, or you put Bulgarians in Britain at Chester, and therefore you had this movement of peoples,
yes.
and you had different coloured skins. The skin what didn't matter because you were a soldier of the empire and you went where you were told.
Yeah, this is the thing. Why I gotta be honest with you, that this skin problem has only become a problem in, you know, it's not a problem now. I don't, it's not a problem at all, but for me it's not. And I see it around me. Nobody cares what skin color somebody is. But for a big time, from for a big time, probably from roughly maybe the 1920s to about the 1980s, skin was a big problem. um
Well,
and
there was the
and
1600s, 1700s, the colonization of America, and the fact
yeah,
that black labor was used in the cotton fields. And that's America created and predominantly advanced the idea of slavery, modern day slavery, for the last 200 and odd years, up until the 1920s, 1930s. And you still have segregation in some American towns, cities, even today. There's still, they say it's not, but there's still a
exactly, exactly. We're gonna crack on to the last bit. We're gonna do a little bit of a conclusion, but we're gonna come back to this next week. So this is a nice one. Oh, hang on. The reason why this is a nice one is it brings everything together. Will you stay on the screen? Right. This brings everything together. We're going to bit of a conclusion, so it brings us back next week, right? So we have talked about the Dacians. We've done a lecture on the Dacians. We've talked about the summations. The Thracians are not on there. Obviously this is the later bit, so we won't include the Carthaginians, the Etruscans, and the Lydians on there. But what we've done, we've got the Parthians on there, the Parthian realm, which is the second Persian Empire. We've got the Han Dynasty there. We've linked it all together, you know. And then what we've got the Scythians. We've done the Scythians as well. We mentioned the Scythians. So what I'm going to do is sort of talk just quickly at the end now, because it's 9:20. A collapse of the Han and rise of the three kingdoms. Like Rome, the Han Empire, the Han Dynasty, eventually fell, and the empire fragmented around AD 220 into three warring states. This is the period of warring states we showed you on the chart earlier on. The Wei, the He, and the Wu. This kicked off a time known as the Three Kingdoms period, full of legendary battles, generals, and power struggles. Right, but it all came back together in another dynasty. This is the point, and again, that sort of sense of connection with what had gone before. Remember, the Han Dynasty, the Han Dynasty itself. Calling emergency services. Oh my God, my phone's just caused emergency services for no reason at all. Back to what I was saying, right? So, let's get back to it. So this. The thing is, what we're looking at is that we've got these three kingdoms. They come back together. They unify. It's this constant thing. You know, we've got to bring back this unified world, right? Didn't happen with the Roman Empire, but it sort of kept being a reoccurring theme with the Persians as well. They like to get themselves back together again. you know, it would be, it would be a dream today, wouldn't it, to have the Jordanians, the Iranians, the Syrians, all together as one big sort of kingdom today. Wouldn't that be great? It would be so dynamic, but they always fight all the time, right? They could learn something from the past. So back to the Han, massive internal corruption and rebellion led to the fall of Han power. Despite chaos, archaeological sites from this era show advances in metallurgy. We see that in the fall of the Roman world in Britain towards, you know, the 420s, 430s, 440s, you know, big metallurgical stuff going up in the northern part of England. And I think, well, the Roman world's still going, you know, as things are starting to go, but things are still happening. Advances in military equipment and strategy and regional burial styles. So this period is so famous in Chinese history that it's become a part of legend. Like the King Arthur legend in Britain. It's like, but the difference is that obviously lots of the Han stuff is documented. You know, there's archaeology, there's burials, you know, there's lots of stuff there. So even in chaos, cultures leave traces, and the archaeology here shows us just how complex even fragmented societies were when they all start to come, when they're all warring after the collapse of the Han dynasty. But if we put those three kingdoms up there on the chart, and we think about, I'm hoping, because my notes, and actually I've got to give credit to my agent today, Alex, because she's put this together for me, which is really appreciate that. So she's put all this together, and it's just so good. So she mentioned that I should just basically show you an image of the pottery. Different types of pottery. Oh, hang on a minute, it's not coming up. Okay. I think we've got a bit of Three Kingdoms. It's called the Three Kingdom period. There we go. From 220, and it's basically to 280. It was a period of about 60 years when things went sort of chaotic, right? Oh, I love it when have you seen these types of charts online where you just click on them and they just move? It's sort of saying the evolution of territory controlled by the Chinese, right? So it's sort of I think it's going to probably go on to, we've still got the Han dynasty now at 220, right? And then somewhere you can see it's moving around there, 211. And you've got these two kingdoms, what is it, the three kingdoms developing, right? So you've got these three kingdoms developing out of the Han dynasty, and this is what's going on, and three new worlds, and this is sort of the thing. I won't keep this on forever, but this is what's going on. So it becomes three individual empires being given different names. And I wonder if there's any pottery on here as well, so we can have a look at the pottery. This is a Wikipedia thing. Hang on a minute. There was an image apparently of the different types of pottery. Hang on. If I type in just a little bit, Three Kingdoms. If it shows you a different Three Kingdoms pottery. I wonder if I can get that up there. Let's see if we can. Three Kingdoms pottery. There we go. It's not showing me images of the pottery, sadly. But the pottery, and maybe I can bring that to you next week. Ah, right. Here is the these are the new types of pottery that is actually developing, right? I think it's going to be more likely. There we go. This is Wu pottery. Look at that. Amazing, isn't it? So that's the new pottery there. That's Wu pottery. So that's going to be from 220 AD 220 onwards. Really highly fired, and maybe we could look a little bit of pottery next week. So I want to ask you guys, you know, if you want me to do more of this next week, and obviously let's just look at that. It's beautiful, isn't it? Just think this type of pottery being produced. Look at that. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Look at the skill in that's being produced 1,800 years ago. And the only thing missing is one of the hands is broken off. Great, isn't it? So more of this next week. I just wanted to ask you, I got 3 questions set up now. And it goes as follows. It goes as follows. 3 questions. I don't know why she's got me doing this, but I will. Oh, and by the way, there's 3 books out. The Genius of China by Robert Temple. There's also BBC History, The Silk Road with Michael Wood. That's going to be worth it. That's going to be a book that's come out in the 1980s. Haven't got that. I got Footsteps by Michael Wood. Chinese History by John Key, right? And maybe next week what I might do is look a little bit more about the jade burial suits and the funerary art and Chinese cosmology that's suggested. So questions. What surprised you the most today? And does this change how you imagine ancient people were? And could we have more Chinese individuals buried across the Roman world? So you got your own questions to ask me. I've got 3 questions to ask you. Let's go. Will, don't spend all night answering those questions.
All right. Well,
Will,
I was a druid in the 200s, and I was a priest
but not in
in the
China.
1100s. So I might have gone back a bit to the Chinese dynasty, and it might have been around. I found, first of all, I found it very interesting, and the fact, yes, the extent of the Silk Road, and I still relate to Jackie Chan, but that's all good stuff. I'd certainly like to hear more about it.
We will.
Lots of in-depth. That's great stuff.
We'll have more next week. Now we've done an overview. Everyone else next week will be going, oh well, we missed all this. Well, it's not my fault. Right. So I personally, the question, could we have more Chinese individuals buried across the Roman world? I like that one, and my answer is going to be yes. However, archaeologists have probably come across loads of these people from China or Africa or wherever, right? But we haven't done the DNA dating on them. They could be in. This is the point. This is the point I make. There's so much in our museums that need to be identified and examined and looked at. We might have all these answers already there. It's just, it was just like, it's just there's so many things. Sometimes we have a press article that says, oh, they have just looked at an artifact that's been in a box for the past 60 years. So, there's answers out there. Right. If there's nothing else from you, Will, I'm going to ask Anne.
I suppose I would imagine that there must be a diaspora of these people all over the place, where there have been routes for them to get through, or whether they've, sometimes people fall out with their own group and go off somewhere and perhaps marry into another tribe. And I think there's probably all over the place, if we could only get them, as you say there's so much that's put into boxes and stored and not looked at properly. I would think it's probably quite widespread. I would think not millions, but it would be all over the place, I would imagine.
The thing is, there was a cemetery excavated in the Vale of Glamorgan in 1993. They found over 100. They found over 1,000 bodies, right? And what they would have done with those bodies, because there's not a lot of funding with that excavation. I just think one of those could have been Chinese. One of them could have been from Africa, right? But we're never going to know, because all that stuff was reburied and whatever, and an opportunity lost. But now we've got the technology. They could have just taken a sample of bone off each one of those, right? Or a tooth or something, right? And we would have the evidence to answer some of these questions. And you're just thinking, could you just imagine just imagine that, right? Imagine that. It's a site near Cardiff. They found one of the bodies that came from, somebody came from Ethiopia, and one of the bodies that came from China, right? And then history changes. When they talk about Cardiff being a cosmopolitan place, when they opened the docks in the 1880s, right? That's wrong, because it was already cosmopolitan before that. We've got the evidence in the graves. So it's a very, very interesting thing to think about all this, and it's yeah, we'll do more of this next week. If there's nothing else from you, Anne, let's ask Andy.
Well, lots of questions to answer. I didn't know about that their Lady Di and the preservation of it. That was really extraordinary, as Anne pointed out.
More next week.
Yeah, very interesting. That I knew about the Silk Road and I knew about the Han Dynasty and things and that. But the Silk Road, the more you learn about it, the more important you realize it was and is. And interesting who claims what and how it developed as from which direction to which direction, or whether it was a bit of both. I rather fancy it's a bit of both, but everybody seems to claim it. It's always it's interesting that we call it the Silk Road. I wonder what the Chinese called it, but
because in a way, the thing is, we call it the Silk Road because we're getting their silk.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Maybe they called it the Gold Road because they got the gold.
Yeah. But it's also very interesting the possibility of respect of sacred places, which did exist here at one time. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any stone circles and burial mounds left.
Okay, that's a given, Andy. Yeah. Sorry, that's
it just suddenly literally just dawned on me now. I thought, but something went wrong, probably when the Romans arrived, that it all got chucked out. But
don't blame the bloody Romans.
Oh, why not?
Andy, I think you might be able to relate to the Silk Road as one of the first open free trade zones throughout the world.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they would have been taxed along the route. They pay the goods and they have a markup on it when they sell it off at a certain point.
Yeah.
But if they were going from, say, Changchu to Rome, it was tax free until they got there, and maybe they had to pay a premium, or whoever bought it paid a premium. But I think it was probably one of the first concepts of free trade, possibly throughout the world.
And I also wonder with it as well, how much of it was let's say one person, a horse going all the way, or whether it was broken down into stages as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Different
bit of a markup by the time it gets to the end.
In different segments.
Perhaps. Yeah, I mean the spice trade was not broken down because it was too lucrative. So really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a point with everything you just said there. It's just like when we talk about that coastal hugging thing with the Phoenicians, we drop off a bit there, we take that bit on, we drop that off, and we take that on, right? But this is different. This is a land route, right?
Yes.
So, it's the point is you've got these silks, right? You've got 3 or 4 donkeys, and they've got panniers on the side of them with this really special silk, right? How are you going to feed yourself? You're gonna have to trade some of this stuff on the way.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to Rome, all your silk's going to be gone, right?
One donkey and no silk. Yeah.
Yeah, one donkey, right? Everything's gone because you've traded it all. So,
but on the other hand, Carl, you're using the coinage for whatever you've got available. You're not trading the silk from the point of that to get to Rome, your silk's going to give you $1,000 an ounce as opposed to $10 an ounce. So you're going to keep your silk to the end, and you're going to trade something else that you're going to use to buy your food and your board in your lodge.
Or it's a mixture of lots of things. Basically, you've got these marketplaces, right? So you've got a Tankesh marketplace, and you take all your silks there. Somebody buys the job lot, and then it goes to somewhere else. It goes to a bazaar in Damascus, and then it goes to Constantinople, and then each time the values increasing more and more. Or you've got those Chinese guys who decide that they want the maximum amount of profit, and you can imagine them, can't you? Jackie Chan all the bloody way. There's a film in this, Jackie Chan and the Silk Route.
Yeah, well, there is a film about that though, but he was in an army that was fighting to defend the Silk Road from other pirates who were, in fact, other Chinese.
We don't want to do that. No, we want to do Jackie Chan with a donkey with all his silk in it. And then what happens? And what happens when he gets to Rome, right? He just discovered that he didn't have any silk in the first place. It was his missus's laundry. It was a bag of knickers, right? And it's gotta be that Jack. That would be brilliant for Jackie Chan. They were, but there's a twist to this. They're silk knickers.
There we are.
That's the film. I've done it.
Well, you better write the book.
Hang on, I haven't finished the film. Because Jackie Chan has to wear these silk knickers to be able to sell them.
Right.
Well, they were called bloomers in the medieval period.
Jackie Chan in bloomers. Now there's an image. Yeah.
I hope you edited this tape, Carl.
Oh no, it's got to go out. We got to at the end of this. We've got to mention that Roger's gone off with Drina on an illicit affair, and
yeah,
and they've taken Judith with them, and they've actually gone to Athens.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Margaret's gone to Spain. So.
Sounds like a great trip, anyway.
No, yeah. You're told that Margaret's gone to Spain. Margaret's technically gone to Poland to rescue Drina from Roger.
Oh, it could be, yeah. Subversive side.
These things are not edited. They can't be. Hey, by the way, Andy, I was going through some old stuff the other day, and I found it. That report that Dr. What's his name did, who used to come along to the classes with Claire. With the samples in a bog that they had down the road. Remember that one?
Oh yeah.
I come across the report the other day.
Oh, all right. You said you had something Cumbrian related.
Right. Yes, I do. I tell you what, I will I will tell you a little bit about this, and I will give you the rest next week. So So I get it. You are right, Andy. You are right. You did remind me. So it's basically it's you can't there's you can't see it, but basically I read this. It was what an absolute pleasure it was to dig on Hadrian's Wall last week, not just near it, but on the wall itself. I was prowling away and covering the lower courses of stone with a team of archaeologists and volunteers. The section was recently unearthed as archaeologists attempt to confirm the course of the wall and find Mile Castle 76 here at Drumbur in Cumbria. The Roman wall, so I've got a really nice image of that to show you next week, Andy, right?
Yeah.
So the Roman wall in the west has largely gone. Its stone having been taken for other buildings over the centuries. In fact, only about 10% of the entire wall has survived intact to the present day. So to find a section here is a great discovery. This is one of the last known stone remnants of the wall west of Hare Hill near Lanercost Abbey, where we went to Lanercost Abbey, didn't we, Andy?
We did.
Yeah. We did.
And there was a lot of Roman wall in that.
Exactly. You can see in front of me, but basically there's a I'll show you next week.
Yeah.
A section of Hadrian's Wall complete with facing stones and a rubble core. It'd be a shame to show you that now because it'd spoil it because it's a really nice image. So we'll show you that next week. And it says that this is it's 2.2 meters wide. Which is quite amazing. So I'll show you that next week, and that's dated from the 17th to the 16th to the 17th of October 2022. So this is new as new. So
excellent.
We'll see. Andy, we'll show you that next week.
Yeah, that's good to find another bit. That's really good.
Good. I'm glad. That's something you didn't know, so that's good.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
So, Will, Anne, and Andy, anything else you want to say tonight before I go in?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Good job. Appreciate
really
it.
Really
So
good
very
session.
good.
I really enjoyed it. Glad I managed to get here this week.
Good. And it's so good that you're better. And
Yeah.
and yeah, and just keep yourself to yourself for a few more days, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm doing. That's all I'm doing. Yeah, just
get well soon. Yeah.
Yeah, take care.
Can you meet up with a greasy bag of chips with Drina?
No, I haven't seen Drina because I would have normally, we swap books and things on a Monday. I see her most Mondays, but I haven't been. Of course, I haven't been near anybody. I didn't want to give anybody this. So
no, don't.
Look after yourself.
Well, I've enjoyed that tonight, and we've gone way to 9:42, which is really odd, considering I thought we were going to be done in an hour. If Will, Anne, and Andy, you haven't got anything else to say, oh, by the way, there is one thing. My God, I nearly forgot it. Don't forget, the monies are now due for the next 2 months.
Oh my goodness, already.
I'll have a word with you about that. Don't worry about it. But Anne and Andy, don't forget, money's due for the next 2 months.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Good night, Will.
See you next week.
Good
All
night.
the best.
See you next week, Will and
Thanks,
Anne
Carl.
and Andy. Thank you very much.
Bye.
No, diolch fawr chi. No. See you next week. No.
Send me email if you like, but I hope I'm paid up for a little bit.
Will, you're on a different thing.
Right. Okay. Let me know what you want. Send me an email.
Right. Okay. Look. Yeah. All right then. I'll say. I'll tell you what. I'll explain it all to you because I didn't. I didn't know you were going to be doing the full log, whatever. So I'll send you an email and explain. All right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let me know. Yeah. In within the next 7 days. Well, before next week, if you send me email, then I got money that goes into an account in Britain, and I can actually send some money to you from there. So
Wink, nudge, say no more. Exactly. I'll send it over to you.
Okay. All the best. Appreciate the
Hey,
night.
really appreciate your support, Will. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Right on. Thanks very much.
No, Will. No. Right, I've got to double check everything. I'm still in the bloody car, guys, you know. Yeah, so by the way, anyone who's out there who wants to subscribe online, right, that would be really appreciated. It's £1.99 a month, and we put a lot of effort into these things. Well, Alex has done the effort tonight. I've just presented the lecture. Right, so I've got to phone Azalea now. Phoned in my lecture. I've got to write down that I've got to message Will. If I can find my bloody phone, a pen. Bit of a mess at the minute. Oh, right, yeah. Oh, God, I need to write this down now. Now! Where's my pen? Oh, God. Oh, I've got to, yeah, I gotta get back. I gotta get back to the Rhondda now. I've checked on the animals, make sure they're locked up. And I'm gonna I'm back here this morning. Found a route to get back now. It takes me an hour and 30 minutes, which is fine. So I'm gonna phone Will. Honey. Azalea. And I'm gonna speak to Azalea for a short while, and I'm gonna go. Okay, diolch yn fawr i chi, nos da, gwelwch chi eto. Night. Speak to you soon, folks. Night, baby. Night. Oh yeah, looking in the box. So nothing in that box. Nothing in that box. Right. And nothing in that box. Right. Right. So nothing there. 1. Nothing there. 2. Nothing there. 3. Nothing there. 4. Nothing there. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nothing there. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Nothing in that window. 7. Nothing in that window. 1. Window 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Done. Done. Nice, night, folks. Thanks for joining me.